Oh, Gurl, a regular read of the latest LGBT plus trends, TV, and the ever-expanding world of drag. Hello there, it's me, the Velvet Snatch, and welcome to this, a very, very special video interview. Now, as usual, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Thotter Stew.
Hello there. It's nice to actually see you. We usually do this with no video, so this is whole new. And look, I'm even wearing the merchandise.
That's it. Usually, I don't have to get dressed up, so I'm kind of sitting here being like,
Either do I.
there's something weird about sitting here in like a bedroom, just being like in full drag. But yeah,
I'm glad I put a little makeup on. I didn't realize we were recording this in video. I thought it was audio. So you're going to be watching my hair dry.
We'll just pretend that I am sitting here in full glamorous clown makeup. Mink and I are just waking up because we're on the other side of the world from you, and we lost an hour because it was time for us to jump forward. So forgive us. If we are a little groggy. 9, but for our bodies, it's 8.
Okay, yeah.
That's the important part.
Now, as you may have guessed by now, we are joined by two incredibly special guests. We are joined by the wonderful Peaches Christ and Mink Stole. How are you doing today, aside from a bit groggy?
I'm great. I'm a bit groggy.
It's 8 a.m. for you. We can forgive this.
Yeah.
I'm also great, partly because right now in San Francisco, I have all the windows open. It is beautiful spring weather, and Mink and I just were reminded of how some of the rest of the world live, because we've just returned from Denver, Chicago, Toronto, and we were dodging blizzards left and right, waking up to inches of snow and then having to get in, an SUV and drive through the snow to another city. So I am right now just full of gratitude because I'm in California.
Yes, me too. It's going to go up to 79 degrees here today, which I don't know what that is in Celsius, but it's going to be, it's warm. It's going to be warm. And after we went to Niagara Falls in a blizzard. So we didn't have a show there. It was just en route. And I don't know that I've ever been colder.
We don't know that, do we, Velvet? We never have warm weather.
We've just had our first 2 days of sunlight this year, and it's midway through March, and it
was -2 degrees.
It was, the sun was out. Like we were at an event the other day, and it was one of these things where there was a big football pitch, and half of it was frozen still, and the other half was in perfect sunlight. And I think that just represents England right now, where it's like you're either freezing or absolutely loving it. So
I'm hoping your beautiful sunlit days are holding so that I can have some of those when we get there.
You bring it with you. Bring the weather with you.
I will do my very best for some California sunlight. Won't we, Peaches? We will do that.
Yes, absolutely. We'll pack some of it up and we will bring it to Newcastle.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now let's get straight into this, though. How did you two form such a wholesome bond?
Is it wholesome? I guess it is. Peaches, you take this one.
Okay. In fact, this is kind of part of what the show is about. So for the folks that are listening and will come to the show, we'll get deeper into the show. But essentially, I was running a midnight movie series here in San Francisco that I started in the 90s. And it began in 1998. And of course, as a kid, I grew up in Maryland, down the street from Baltimore in Annapolis. And my life was forever changed when I discovered the movies of John Waters. They were making Hairspray in Baltimore. And so it was on the local news that they were making this movie with Hollywood folks, and they showed Divine. And my little Maryland brain, in the 80s, where I felt so alone at Catholic school, knew I was different. It was changed forever. So when I was, a young adult drag performer doing punk rock theater, really truly illegal outlaw type events that I should have been arrested for, I kind of had this sort of wild idea to bring the person I admired so much, for me, Mink Stole was such a movie star. You know, we knew all of her lines of dialogue. Whenever I would screen a John Waters movie, you know, we would sell out the show. And I just wrote her this big long letter and asked her if she would come and attend Midnight Mass. And 25 years ago, she said yes. And
Wow.
believe it, you know, I was kind of freaking out. And we brought her to San Francisco, and I did a big tribute show alongside a screening of Desperate Living. And, you know, I didn't know at the time that that meant a lot to her, because I had assumed that she was always being lauded and getting her flowers. But that wasn't necessarily the case. So it meant a lot to her, and we just bonded and became quick friends. And then I continued to ask her to do things for the next 25 years.
No, that night was very special for me, because most of the attention for the early films of John Waters, most of the attention went to Divine, which was justified. I cannot say that she didn't deserve it. She did. But nonetheless, you know, there I was off in the corner going, but I did good work too, you know, and feeling basically like you know, sort of the forgotten Dreamlander. So when I came up to San Francisco and was received with such enthusiasm by this audience, and the Hail Mink banner across the stage, it was overwhelming for me. I mean, it was really a night of revelation that actually people did care about what I had done and did find my work of value. So I was really touched. And how can you not love the person who gives that to you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love
It's
that.
true.
I think, but why did we get a hail banner? We should have.
Yeah, we'll put
Next
on in post.
Yeah, we'll
I mean, to be fair, the show is called Idol Worship, you know. So it now it's our brand, and you know we have T-shirts and things. But in the early days, you know, I was just sort of figuring it out. And you know, another part of the show is that I then asked her to do more Midnight Mass shows, and you know, I really credit Mink with basically giving me a start, and in a sense, because we were when I say we were underground, we were making this stuff in the bubble of San Francisco. Drag queens unless you were RuPaul, you were not aspiring to have a career in drag. There was RuPaul and there was Divine. You know, there were very few people who, you know, were successful. So for me, it was a punk rock hobby, you know, and it was Mink who said yes, which then led me to not only get to do these sorts of events for other icons. To this day, you know, I still credit Mink. I did a show last year with Tim Curry. Never in my wildest imagination did I think growing up that I would be able to do a show for someone, you know, that I admired, like Tim Curry or Mink Stole or Elvira or John Waters or Tura Satana, and the list goes on. I mean, not to be obnoxious, but after 30 years of being Peaches Christ, I have gotten to work with some of the biggest, you know, most iconic names in genre film and cult movies. And I thank Mink Stole, because Mink said yes. And if she had said no, you know how it is when you're young. That might have been it. I might never have asked anyone else, you know, to come and do this kind of show. And not only did she say yes to that, but then I asked her to be in a movie, and I asked her to go on tours with me, and I asked her to, you know, create silly drag theater with me and, you know, drag queens. Mink, I love you. Thank you so much, because, you know, you changed.
Well, honey, I have to thank you for asking me. So we're even on this one.
Okay.
I love this. This isn't just giving her flowers. This is opening a whole florist, I think. You know,
Oh.
Yes.
This celebration of like how wonderful you are.
But the show is not just about me. It's about us, and it's about how we work together and how our friendship developed. And it really is. It started out, the first time we did it, it started out being Peaches as a fan and me being the idol. But as we did it over and over again, I realized that was just not, it wasn't telling the real story.
Yeah.
And the real story is that we have been mutually beneficial to each other, you know, and there have, you know, Peaches has done for me what wasn't being done before. And so, I owe Peaches a great deal as well. So we're very even on this.
That is it. It's exactly, that is wholesome. Even if you don't see it that way, to us, this is the most wholesome bond you could ask for. Like, can we talk about the show, though? Like, without giving too much away, like, what can you tell us about it? Well,
we show film clips. We start out, we have some film clips. We do some songs. We basically, it's as though we're inviting you into our living room. And we're visiting with each other, but we're talking to the audience. The thing is, the audience pays and they don't get to talk, but
as they should.
And part of it is that there is this sort of set part of the show that we, rehearse, and we do obviously the songs. Mink has a wonderful singing voice that, I didn't really know about for years, even into our friendship. And at one point she said, "Oh, I'm making an album. I put a band together and I'm making this album." And even then I was kind of like, okay. Because I think a lot of people don't know that she is a singer and is actually a talented musician who was able to put together, she produced her own album, Do Re Mink. And so that was another thing where it was kind of like, when I realized that, of course, I'm an exploiter of talent. I mean, if you know my drag children, if you know my friends, if I can exploit your talent, unfortunately,
that's a T-shirt right there.
Yeah. But I haven't figured out how to get rich off exploiting all their talents. But I have figured out how to create great shows utilizing their talents. And so with this show in particular, there's the sort of the rehearsed part, but a lot of it's unrehearsed, where we will hit the same beats and I will tackle covering some of the same content, meaning, of course, we're going to talk about pink flamingos. Of course, we're going to talk about some of these things. But every show, I shit you not, because, we're talking to a walking historical, not to make you sound old, Mink, but it's a historical treasure trove of decades of, experiences. There is some new nugget or two that I get for the fans and myself as an obsessed fan, where I go, wait, what? And it's always that level of spontaneity that I think makes the show a little more special than if we had just scripted and rehearsed a show, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we hit notes. We definitely hit notes, but it is spontaneous. It is not scripted.
For example, Mink, you brought up I surprised Mink by remembering a story that she had forgotten she told me, and I brought it up on stage, not realizing that I was going to surprise her. But that was fun to see her reaction. Like, how did you know I arrived in Provincetown in a stolen car? And I'm like, because you told me once a long time ago. And then she told a story about John Waters giving her a haircut that I hadn't heard. So, it's things like that where for her, the story about John Waters giving her a haircut and carving a W into the back of her head is not really a big deal, because it was her
in my hair, not actually with a knife into my neck.
No. He carved it violently, branding her. Yeah. But that's the kind of thing where I'm on stage going, what? Oh my God, what? And the whole audience is kind of, I'm channeling the fandom, really. So I'm in the lucky position of being a conduit of the audience's worship. So yeah, we hope to bring Newcastle some new little nugget that I have yet to hear.
Newcastle needs some new nuggets. I think we need all of the new nuggets. All the tea. Give us some nuggets. They usually chicken around here, so we'll take a golden nugget instead. Honestly, we need that. So you've talked a lot about the sort of fan element and fanning out things that you don't personally know. Is that your favorite part of doing the show, or is there a sort of standout that you've already got set up in it that you every single night are like, I can't wait to get to that part?
Oh, that's a good question. Not really. I'll answer only for me. I just enjoy doing the show so much as a package. That's so interesting to say that. There are clips, obviously, that I get excited about getting to because the audience is so excited, So the first big clip where you can tell the audience sort of shifts in is when she does there are two kinds of people in this world, Miss Sandstone, the whole Connie Marble thing. And then the other one is as soon as they see an image of Mink as Dottie Hinkle split screen with Kathleen Turner and they're about to pick up the phones, the audience will cheer just by seeing because they know what's coming. So I love those moments. It's also the part of the show where she and I get to sort of relax because it's a movie clip and we get to have a sip of water. But I love doing the whole show. I've never thought about one standout moment. I don't know if you have a favorite part, Mink.
I love all of it. It's the thing that I really love about it is the fact that we are basically relaxed on stage because we know, since it isn't scripted, if one of us can't think of something clever to say at the moment, the other one just picks it up. So we're never at a loss, and the audience feels very comfortable. It's a relaxed show. There's no tension in the air. We're not walking a tightrope, and there's no fear of forgetting your lines that there would be in a stage play. So I love the whole relaxed quality of it, which is what, makes it possible for me to say things that I didn't know I was going to say.
It's good because you have obviously structure to a lot of shows, and that is good if that's what you're aiming for. Like some shows need the structure, and as long as you've got that skeleton baseline, what you're doing is just allowing the audience to be as comfortable as you. Because we're all going to sit there and go, "Wow, we are in a living room.
Exactly
we're paying to be in the living room, but we're here." And it's a good experience. It's almost like a live sort of movie, really, because you're reliving like things, as you're thinking them through, and we get to witness that. So I can't wait for it. I think it's going to be amazing.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Like that is another part of what I love about doing the show right now. And sadly, Mink and I together, really Mink came to me and said, "Hey girl, I'm loving this, but I need to slow down. We're going to continue working together. We're going to continue doing shows together. But this touring and this particular show, which we have been doing for years, this is our final year doing it. And I think that knowing that for me, after 25 years of doing shows with her and touring with her on and off and, these adventures, the shows now, especially when we come to England, now have this sort almost precious component to them for me, because I know that we're wrapping this stage up and this show is being wrapped up. So for me, there's a lot of emotional components to it, which I think the audience, especially on this latest leg of the tour, I feel like the audience really felt that. You could feel the reaction to us.
I have decided not to tour anymore after this. I'm not stopping work forever, but touring is very hard. And, And I'm just, I'm 78 years old. I just don't want to do it.
And she's married.
And I'm married.
Oh, terrible.
And it's I'm relatively newly married, and I want to be with my husband. So, which we talk about that in the show as well.
I mean, before we started, you were saying how this is your first time actually coming to the north of England for these shows like that. How does that feel for you? That's crazy.
It's insane. I mean, we had planned to bring the show to London 6 years ago, and the pandemic put a stop to it. We were unable to come. I mean, we were booked. Which in a way is good, because the show that we're bringing is better than the show we would have brought.
True.
Worked on it for, we've continued to work on it. And even the last tour that we did things quite differently from the time before that we had done it. So there's been an evolution of the show. And right now the show is popping hot.
We're locked in.
Yeah, we're locked. So this is... but yes, to be coming to England, I can't even tell you how excited I am. All I do is listen to British mysteries and watch BritBox. So to actually be able to come and be in person with those wonderful voices and faces, I'm thrilled. I do love a British accent.
Oh my.
I do need subtitles when I'm watching. But I'm really, really thrilled.
To be fair, though, Mink, let's talk a little bit about your film career, because obviously, like, you got your early start in John Waters movies, but, like, are there any things you can let us know about that, or any sort of behind-the-scenes things that people might not know? I mean, I don't know if it's weekly, but I think it's monthly that me and my friends quote "Go Home to Your Mother" from Desperate Living, like...
Oh,
it's so iconic. Everything.
Tell your mother I hate her.
Yeah.
Tell your mother I hate you. I know Peggy had some great lines. John wrote wonderful lines for me. He wrote me terrific dialogue because he really liked me being horrible on screen. He enjoyed that. He liked seeing me swear, and he liked seeing me flipping out. I don't know. I don't want to give away anything on this interview that I might be talking about in the show.
Fair.
But I just wish John could make another movie. That would be really fun. I don't know that
we all wish.
I know we all
wish.
We all wish. I feel very lucky because when I met John, I was 18 going on 19. He was 20. We were both very young. He was not an established filmmaker. He was not John Waters in quotes. He was not the person that he is now, the celebrity that he is now, the accomplished person that he is now. And I was very lucky because when I met him, I got in on the ground floor. I was there at the beginning. He had made one 10-minute movie before I met him. So I was able to start with him in, his second movie. And then, every feature film that he's done since then, I have been in. So, there's something nice about being in at the beginning that, I don't know. I feel a bit of, we're film history. We talk about this in the show, but we started, our first films were silent. And then we moved into 16 millimeter silent, and then sync sound anyway, and then 16 millimeter sync sound, then colored. We've really I've been with him since we worked our way out of 8 millimeter silent films.
Going through the motions, really, though. It's a lot of different things to progress through. And it's amazing because even the first ones are so good.
It all made sense, because we were all learning at the same time.
It's true. And when you learn together, you form the better bond as well, because then you've gone through it together, you've experienced together, you've adapted to it, and you've came out on top, let's be honest. I mean, they're all cult classics. No one can ever deny that.
They are cult classics. Like, how must it feel to have people talking about these things that, like, may not have seemed massive to you when you were doing them, but now people are still having cult movie nights for them? I think we've got one planned in a couple of months of just sitting down, watching all of these films and getting drunk. And yeah, that is gay culture now.
I'm glad I didn't know that. That's all I can say. I'm really, really glad I didn't know then. And I'm glad that none of us knew then, because I think it would have changed the way we were. I mean, who could possibly foretell that something that we were doing 55, 60 years ago would still be having an impact? There's no way that you can ever predict that or know that. But I was, pretty insecure, and insecure people, when they get, some attention and fame, tend to get nasty. So I would have been kind of awful, I think, had I known. And as it is now, I'm hugely wonderful.
To be humble about it, of course.
Hugely wonderful. But it would have changed everything, I think, had we known. We were all working hard. We wanted to do a good job. I'm not saying we were casual about it. We came to work. We were extremely professional, all of us. We came to work knowing our lines, knowing what we were supposed to do, ready to work. But we had no clue. I think Divine, of us, Divine was the one who kind of knew that Starter was the path she was on.
Well, speaking of Divine, actually, I wanted to ask, working alongside someone that's sort of truly unique and wonderful, like what an experience that must have been. How do you feel like that impacted you as an actress?
I had to work very, well, visually, Divine took up a great deal of space. So I had to, not just because of the way she looked, but also, just she was really a good actor. But Divine, and I do go into this in the show, Divine was a very generous performer. Divine never was trying to upstage me, always gave focus to whatever actor she was working with, was incredibly professional and really good to work with. I mean, I have since worked with actors who I will not name, but I have since worked with actors who felt themselves alone on screen.
Yeah.
And Divine never did that. Divine was always sharing the screen with her fellow actors. And I really have come to appreciate how valuable that was.
That is important. You should always be able to share the space with people.
Absolutely, but not everybody
everyone's got to. But yeah, it's a struggle though, especially, you don't see it as much in modern days. There isn't as much space for people to share the stage, so people are trying to take it. But it's great that even back then, now what we're seeing on the screen as arguably one of the biggest characters in history was so kind behind the stage and allowed you to have, your moment. And so
absolutely.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. No, I realized, how amazingly valuable it was. It helped everybody. And it helped Divine. I mean, Divine was always present in the scene. So, I mean, one of the things that made the films work is we all committed, to these ridiculous characters that we played. We committed to them completely. We said, yes, okay, this is what we do. So, there's no winking at the audience. There's no, we know we're being silly here. It was all very, there, very present.
No, brilliant. I mean, but moving on to Peaches, though, like Peaches, you are, I don't know how to sum it up. You are an incredible drag legend. And like, I don't know, I kind of want to ask, like, what was your original inspiration from like a drag and comedy perspective? Like, sort of, how did you get started and what drove you in the direction that you've gone in? That's a big question.
Of course,
sorry.
Yeah, but it's a question that I get asked enough now, which is kind of nice in a way that people are interested in these things. Because like I contextualized earlier, growing up, it wasn't something. I think it's really amazing that kids today could grow up and say, I want to be a drag queen when I grow up. That is not something this Gen Xer, growing up in the 80s had. We did not have drag queens, in pop culture the way that we do today. And so I've always associated my love of drag and my interest in drag as being synonymous with my love of cult movies and my love of the macabre and things that are outsider and punk rock and transgressive. And so, growing up in Maryland, it was the discovery of Divine, obviously, that really changed my mind about drag. And then really looking at what John and all of the Dreamlanders were doing, it was married, the concept of drag with transgressive cult movies, midnight movies. It only doubled down a year later when I was brought to my first Rocky Horror screening, where boom, more drag, more gender, confrontation, and another way to celebrate movies and cult movies. And both John's movies and Rocky Horror obviously reference movies and share a love of movies. And so, that was a big thing. And it wasn't until later when I realized, my first introduction to drag was my childhood obsession with Elvira. Like as soon as Elvira, was revealed to me on television growing up, and she was screening these old campy cult movies, I was obsessed, but I didn't realize that part of my obsession with her was connected to this concept of what I think of as drag, dressing up as a character other than yourself, being larger than life, being silly. So my holy triumvirate of drag inspirations for Peaches Christ is Divine, Frankenfurter, and Elvira. I mean, those three things are what gave, and we go into this in the show, but because I was from Maryland and because they were from Maryland and Hollywood seems like a million miles away, and I knew I wanted to make movies. I knew that as a kid. The discovery of John and Mink and Divine and Edie in this world being so close to home was, I think, inspiring in a way that it's hard for me to even estimate how inspirational that was, because it showed me that there were people like me that weren't a million miles away. They were just up the street and they were living where my grandparents lived, and that, like I was recognizing like, wait, that's Towson, Maryland. I know that place. So that idea that you could do this and be from Maryland was massive for me.
I think that's it. It's like realizing that the world isn't so small, like you kind of, you grow up thinking like sort of, oh, that person's all of that and I'll never be able to do that. And then realizing like, oh, okay, actually they started off like from humble roots as well. It's a great factor.
I think that's part of like why we've created our sort of content and stuff. We've seen various platforms do it and we thought, why can't we do it? What is the barrier? And then we decided, well, let's not make a barrier, let's just go for it. And what happens?
And we love
this is the barrier.
It's great.
Right here. The barrier that I see young people face that's actually the hardest is all up here. And I think that's such a good point. And it's so, especially when, Stuart and Velvet, you're like me, you're attracted to the alternative stuff. And so I always tell young, folks that are asking for, whatever advice, it's like, I didn't follow a blueprint. I made it up, but that's the whole point. We don't have to go to LA or New York and apply to work for a studio. If you're interested in the kind of stuff that we're interested in, John didn't follow a blueprint. You just have to do it and figure it out. And there's something to that,
Well, you and John have a couple of things in common. You are both driven. You're both incredibly creative, and you're both very ambitious, and you both have really active imaginations. Not everybody is blessed with those qualities, which is not to say that people who don't have those qualities in the amounts that you and John have should not work and try to do stuff. Creativity comes on all levels. You and John just have special amounts.
I agree. It's great though, because there are the rare people that are blessed with that gift of, we can all have an element of creativity, but
everybody has
it's 1 in a million to have this level.
You can have creativity, but you need to have the passion that pushes you into doing something with it. And a lot of people I know are creative, but not passionate necessarily. I don't know if that's a moot point. But
you know what the word is that I use now? Audacious. I feel like a lot of young people aren't audacious enough, and I think that's where sometimes I say it took a certain amount of audacity to think that I should be on stage with Mink Stole at 23 years old or whatever I was, but that audacity is what led me to achieve. Right. So sometimes I say, and in places like San Francisco, I hate to say it, ambition isn't always looked at as a positive thing. It can be looked at as arrogant or obnoxious. And so I guess Mink is right that it does take a certain amount of just built in, like you're either funny or you're not. That is one thing where I'm like, I sometimes I'm dealing with a young drag child or young, and it's like, honey, this is not what you're good at. So find the thing, because everyone's good at something, right? So first figuring out what is it I'm actually good at and I can excel in, and then having the audacity to shove it in people's faces is like a big, those are the magical ingredients. Like, what am I good at? Everyone's good at something, and then pursuing that thing. I love Drag Race, don't get me wrong, and I love Dragula. I mean, I'm on Dragula. I enjoy all that stuff. But I feel like the entertainment component of it is lost sometimes when people think about it. And it's like, bitch, my drag peers, when I was growing up, we weren't good at everything. We didn't have to go on a TV show and know how to sew and know how to do an improv challenge and know how to do a death drop. We were good at one or two things, and everyone found their route for kind of exploiting your own talent. So, Coco Peru is a brilliant writer and monologuist. Coco Peru and I aren't necessarily good at the same things. But, and on Drag Race, they're never going to say, write and direct a giant drag spectacular or write and direct a horror movie, or produce an event. Like that's the stuff I'm good at. So, television has sort of warped our idea of what it takes. It's like, well, maybe we don't follow the blueprint that's been set out by a TV show. And maybe we figure out, oh, okay, this girl, she's good at these 2 or 3 things. Now, focus, hone in on that, and turn it into something special.
It's that idea of going, hey, here's what you're good at. How do we make a platform for that? Because there's loads of people where it's like, oh, you're a dancer, so what can we do with that? Like, rather than everyone being like, oh, I have to fit into these boxes, and maybe I'll be getting... It's a bit like Drag Race, though, where it's like, oh, you have to look great for like 4 weeks, and then maybe you'll get to a comedy challenge. And it's like, well, that's not really for everyone,
And spend huge amounts of money.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So much money.
But I mean, I think we don't even really talk about the fact that we come from a ragtag, do it yourself, scrape together whatever resources you have. I mean, shoplift if you must, and make these things for no money. And then, we put one foot in front of another. Whereas I feel like now, like, everyone seems to be focused on getting to this one thing, getting on this one TV show. Not everyone. Obviously, there are young, brilliant performers who are carving out their own path. But a lot of drag right now is focused on this particular path. And I think Mink and I, part of our show, it actually, Mink, you probably felt this a lot, especially recently. We went from doing this show for basically our peers, but what we're finding is now the millennials and the Gen Zs are showing up to our show, and they're leaving and grabbing us and going, thank you, because I needed to be reminded that there's this other way, that you can crawl up from the underground and do it yourself. I mean, we basically just did it ourselves.
And you've done so much as well. Like, I know we've had a sort of chat about Mink's career. You also have had this long-going career, and I wanted to know, alongside obviously your incredible work with Mink, we've got a show about that. We'll come to the see about that. I want to know, what is your fondest memory from working with someone else? Like, anyone over your decades of fantastic career, just one solid memory that stands out straight away.
I have a really pivotal one because for a number of reasons, it was an important moment in my life. And it was actually, it used to be that I thought of all the early stuff, the earlier stuff. When I turned 45, I'm now 52, and I'm also very, very proud to be, now considered an older drag performer. I'm lucky that some of my peers like Coco Peru and Barla, Jean Merman are still considerably older than I am. Speaking of Coco was the roast master at my 45th birthday roast, which sold out at the Castro Theater in like record-breaking fashion, because the lineup on the dais was, Mink Stole, Elvira, Clea Duvall, Jinx Monsoon, Heclina, Heather Matarazzo. And that moment of being roasted by a collection of people who were both drag children of mine, drag peers of mine, and then also the idols that I grew up watching was extraordinary enough. And then the surprise was that John Waters walked in, came down the aisle, got on stage, and was the surprise finale roaster who didn't really want to roast me. So what he did instead was kind of, it was almost like something he might say at my funeral if I were to pass away. And I felt like I was sitting on stage going, this is fucking surreal. This is so surreal and so wild because it was the little kid, the little wee Peaches, the tiny queer kid having this full out of body experience of like, oh my God, they're here to celebrate me. And it was because I've always been the one celebrating my idols. And that night it was almost uncomfortable for me because you sit in a chair, off to the side. And even though everyone's calling you fat and stupid, it's in our world, that's a show of love. Teasing is our love language in many ways. So it was amazing. Yeah.
It's a beautiful uncomfortability though. If you're ever going to be uncomfortable, the best time to do that is because you're happily uncomfortable. These people are here to celebrate you, and so they should. You both very much deserve your flowers. Like we said, we're growing a florist. We're not just it's not just one bouquet. Like you've done so much work for the community, and rights to it. I only wish I could have been there for that roast because it sounded incredible.
But bloody hell, seeing all of those, like, yeah, that's incredible. I'm like, yeah, meeting Elvira is on my list at some point. I really want to meet Elvira at some point.
Yeah, I mean, she is, there Mink and Elvira and I, because they were both in my movie, have done shows together where it's the three of us on stage, more than once. And some of those memories are so surreal for me because yes, they are my friends. And I consider both, I say I have two drag mothers, Mink Stole and Elvira. And they really are, in the sense that, like, now that I have very famous drag children, very successful drag children, I realize that, my relationship with one child, for example, with Jinx, has turned very maternal and very emotional. But when we started, it was much more of a practical kind of relationship of like, I have experience and I'm going to advise you on, what I think you should do. Now it's very like, you need a shoulder to cry on, you call me.
Yeah.
Whereas with Bob, it's still very, Bob is very, business minded and very savvy and leans on me in different ways. Both Mink and Cassandra were so generous with their, I would say, even maternal nurturing. Like, for example, when I, was struggling with a boyfriend back in the day, it was those two who basically came to me and said, like, girl, cut your losses. So they've become, just beyond the icons, they've become friends. That is surreal for me. The fact that Mink and I share Airbnbs on the road and have become chosen family. I'm going to Elvira's house next week, to dog sit for her, for 10 days, Elvira trusts me enough to leave me in her giant home alone. Is she crazy?
She is.
Yeah.
What kind of makeup do you leave behind?
Oh my God, I have not yet rooted through her makeup. I feel like there's a couple rooms. Yeah, there's a couple rooms. One is her bedroom. Obviously, I don't go into her bedroom. And then there's sort of this like magic office space where I know secret plans and, because of course she's constantly, looking at things for new, I don't know, pinball machines or whatever. And she didn't say I wasn't allowed to go in there. Actually, my husband's sitting over here, but both he and I, when we got the house tour, we were like, she doesn't want us to go in there. Yes.
Well, you don't want to spoil a surprise as well. You want to be like, oh, okay, let her tell me about that when she's ready,
100%. And one thing that is very true of all these friendships is it would mortify me if I ever thought I did anything to really upset Mink or Cassandra or John, or, you become friends, but the fandom doesn't stop. You don't remove that part of yourself that was obsessed with them as a child. You can't. It's your core being, so even though Mink and I are super, super close and we work together and we're on the road together, I will always have this admiration for Mink that will just never not be there.
Well, thank you. I think you're just honoring your elders at this point, though.
No,
that's why I'm friends with Velvet.
Yeah.
That's more a sympathetic action, I think. Isn't it community service at this point?
Someone's got to get you out of the house, darling.
Oh, take me to a movie. But for a question for both of you now, though, like obviously your approach to art and cinema is like you're saying, it's very alternative. Like, was there a specific moment that you realized that the transgressive, like, or cult art were the spaces that you wanted to inhabit?
Well, I mean, I knew that we were being transgressive back in the early days. I guess the most transgressive film for me, or first really transgressive film, was Multiple Maniacs. And, there was a cavalcade of perversion. There was the scene in the church, the love scene between Divine and me. And having grown up Catholic, I was very happy to be able to be subversive in a church and be incredibly sacrilegious and sort of give the middle finger to the Pope and Catholicism, because I was angry about the way I was raised. But I just accepted it. I was happy. We were having fun. We were just all having a really good time. I don't think we realized exactly how transgressive we were being. I mean, I knew that this rosary job in the church was pretty off the charts, but it never occurred to me not to do it or to be hesitant. I was not hesitant in the least to do it. It was perfectly, okay, yay. But I don't think we realized, maybe John did, I don't know. I don't think the actors realized how transgressive it was. We were just having a good time. We had no idea, like I was saying earlier, we had no idea that 50 some years later, we would be considered culturally significant. I don't know when I realized. I mean, I know we were doing off the wall stuff, but I never thought of it as transgressive in particular. I don't know that I even knew that word.
How about you, Peaches?
I think I was because I've often, been asked about my childhood. So I've gone to both my parents over the years and said, okay, I get asked, when did I discover I was this weird or this obsessed with horror or this queer or whatever? And they both have said, you came out that way. You just were, And so as a child, when all the other kids liked this thing, I liked that thing. And so that's why I can't remember ever really making a choice. It was so naturally in my DNA to want to provoke, to be attracted to things that were upsetting to people, and I think about that and how as an adult, I have this adult life that is really essentially me as a child. I grew up obsessed with haunted attractions and haunted houses, which is a very American thing as far as the way we celebrate Halloween. It's actually the only piece of American culture I actually really love is Halloween. And so that was my obsession as a kid. And so things like Midnight Movies and John Waters and Mink, all of this stuff is all in this sort of like, I was attracted to punk music. I was attracted to post-punk. My favorite bands when I was young were not anything anyone else was listening to. In fact, I'm a bit of an Anglophile because it was David Bowie and Depeche Mode, The Cure, the Pet Shop Boys. I mean, if it wasn't overtly queer, it was darkly goth. So I've always been drawn to that. And over the years, I think I realized, and this is why tongue in cheek, I call myself a cult leader. I realized, I am a conduit for this cult, and I create events and happenings that are for the cult. And so I traffic in this tribe of transgression.
That is so poetic, a way of putting it at the end there.
Traffic
that was awesome.
Tribe of transgression. That's really good. You're right.
That's the t-shirt idea.
I need to write that down.
Quickly, how quick can you get some of these t-shirts printed to bring to the UK? Because
right.
immediately, and that's just to us. If no one else wants it.
That's the poll quote for at least the Peaches part. I traffic in a tribe of transgression. Peaches Christ.
Boom. Done. Get it on t-shirts, canvases, in some lyrics in a song. We need it.
Yes.
So my last question for each of you, before we obviously naturally do some promotion, which is very well deserved for the upcoming tour. I would just like each of you to give a little bit of a message to our queer community on sort of, how they can feel supported and uplifted in what are truly questionable times. I know we did touch on it a little bit earlier, but official advice, even just a 20-second piece of advice from each of you, because it's very important. We need it.
I'll give you one. Keep living the life you're living, because your very existence is political. You don't have to be overt. Just keep living the life you're living, doing what you love, and you are making a statement.
Fully agree. I
think that one of the things that Mink and I talk about is that sometimes we are called activists, and both of us are like, oh God, we know a lot of activists, and that takes a ton of work and time and energy and planning. And hopefully, if you're a good activist, dialogue and debate, right? And really, thoughtful, intentional planning. But I've come to accept we are activists in a way by the mere, what she's saying. I agree with, like, just the fact that I called myself Peaches Christ and I created a show called Midnight Mass. And it's because of a movie called Multiple Maniacs, where I watched Mink perform a sacrilegious act on Divine. There is this sort of activism where if you're inspiring others to be themselves and to question authority, even if it's through entertainment, that is still activism. I just have never, I've been reluctant. I'm the reluctant activist because I don't ever want to take away from the hard work that people have done, that are really, in the trenches, planning protests and confronting authority. But we are doing that. It's just that we're doing it through our art. And the other thing to sort of answer your prompting about what to tell young people is that I've really hung on to the fact that historically, and I think it was Justin Vivian Bond who shared this amazing article that I read that really I'm hanging on to it for dear life, that historically when the world shifts, and in the centuries of history, we've seen that through before a great period of enlightenment and real practical change, as we are approaching that new period and the world is going to shift, there is a small period of darkness. And if you look at the progress that we've achieved as queer people, as far as tackling racism and misogyny go in the world, confronting these institutions, we have achieved incredible progress. And what we are dealing with now is one of the last gasps of horrifying, it's a fight for them to not die off, but they are dying off. And so what we're seeing is this last gasp of the darkness before we get to, not to say that it's going to be all paradise on the other side. It's just that we're going to shift to a place where trans people aren't going away, no matter how hard you try. Trans people are not going away. Drag queens are not going away. I'm sorry, Ms. Rowling. You will never win this battle. And so when it looks really dark and awful, especially if you're young, just realize that historically we are on the right side and we are making progress.
Amen. That is... But no, what do we want to promote today?
I do love that one thing that's happened when I was there. I was in Gateshead last December. I loved that there are people now I'm meeting who listen to me in their ears because they like the Midnight Mass podcast. And so I actually am always very excited. And as Mink and I have gone out, it's been nice to, no matter where we go, someone will come up to me and go, I love the podcast. So if you aren't as familiar with my stuff or you aren't as familiar with cult movies and sort of a queer, specifically a very queer connection to these movies, check out the Midnight Mass podcast, and nose around peacheschrist.com, because I've done a pretty big overhaul over there, mostly because I'm trying to get away from relying on social media to spread the word of filth, because as they've revealed themselves to be, they are horrible people who are capitalists that are going to milk us for everything they can. They have no interest in our values whatsoever. So I've gone back to going, okay, well, at least peacheschrist.com is an online, thing that I can control the content over, because I can't handle Zuckerberg or Elon Musk another moment,
Brilliant. Okay, what can you tell us some of the dates for the Idol Worship Tour, when you're going to be in Gateshead, like where people can get tickets?
We're at the BFI in London, which is so surreal, because it doesn't get fancier in terms of being honored by a film institution than the BFI. And I think, as Mink and I both mentioned, we're both Anglophiles who love British TV shows and movies and, British culture. So, that is a big deal. The BFI is April 10th, then Manchester at home, April 11th, Newcastle, April 14th, Edinburgh, April 16th, Dublin at the Irish Film Institute, April 18th, and then we wrap things up in Amsterdam on April 21st.
That's kind of it. I know that Criterion is putting out a Blu-ray of Desperate Living, which I got to see a little clip of the other day, and it's going to be gorgeous.
That is so exciting.
It's 4K. It's fabulous.
Oh, I can't wait. That movie, to see restored and with all the lush colors of Mortville, I cannot wait. I saw randomly on social media the scene where you and Cuckoo are brought in the cages, and the colors of that set, I was looking at it going, oh my God, where Edie says, seize her and fuck her.
Yes. I love one of my favorite lines.
Stuart, what are you promoting?
Yeah. I'm going to promote just going and listen to our other episodes of our podcast, our various different interviews. We've spoken to so many incredible people and had, just like you guys, some wonderful opportunities over the years. Go back and listen to them. Just check out people you might not know. There's a lot of Drag Race and stuff in there, so there's some people you obviously have heard of. Look at the other ones. Go discover some new people. Go support them as well, because we're all queer people. We all need support. We all need love. So spread it and have fun while doing it.
No, that's amazing.
How about you, Velvet?
Just if you're interested in my big bold bonds, you can follow me on social media just by searching for The Velvet Snatch. But yes, I would definitely endorse our podcast, Gurl, Gurl Global. Search for that and you'll get all of our wonderful back catalogue of episodes, because it's not just drag queens we speak to. It's a lot of very talented artists and performers, and it's a joy. But no, thank you so much for being on the show. It is so incredibly special, and I absolutely can't wait for the tour to begin over here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. This has been a real pleasure. I can't wait to meet you guys.
Yes.
Hello now.
What will I wear? We'll find out.